It is the video everybody is talking about today. President Bush ducked some unfriendly foot fire in Iraq after an Iraqi journalist threw a pair of shoes at him, as you can see, during a press conference and yelled in Arabic, quote, "This is a farewell, dog." In Arab culture, throwing a shoe is, of course, the rudest of insults. CNN's senior editor for Arab Affairs, Octavia Nasser, joins us live now from the .com newsroom with more reaction. Octavia, good to see you. I'm very interested in the reaction here. The Iraqi judiciary is trying to decide whether the shoe thrower will face charges of assaulting Iraqi Prime Minister Nouri al-Maliki, not President Bush. So what does that say about the way the incident is regarded in Iraq?
Really a big question. You know, in the Arab world, you don't just throw a shoe at people, let alone the prime minister of your own country and the president of the United States, who's a guest being honored by the prime minister. So the act itself is so bizarre, it's so out of place. People really don't know what to do with it. So you have all kinds of reactions. You have a mixed reaction. Most people are saluting this man, calling him a national hero. In Iraq, outside Iraq, they see him as someone who dared basically express his opinion, an opinion that they think represents them as well. But there is a minority, although it's a minority, but there are people who are saying this is shameful. This man should be ashamed of himself. This is not how you treat a guest. This is not representative of the Iraqi culture. This is not representative of Iraqi journalists. This is not how a journalist should behave. So you have a mixed bag of reaction. But definitely, this video is also playing out in the Arab world. The picture of President Bush ducking and Prime Minister Maliki reaching out to stop the second shoe is plastered on every major newspaper in the Arab world. People are talking about it, many of them with a big grin, just because President Bush is not popular in the Arab world. This is something that we've discussed many, many times here on this segment. So they see this as a reflection of the man and how his legacy is ending in Iraq.
And talking about people coming out in support of the shoe thrower, the TV station that employs him has called for the journalist to be released. Obviously, he's in custody right now, but they've called for him to be released, quote, in accordance with democracy and freedom of expression Iraqis were promised by the new era and American authorities. It's an interesting tension there, sort of applauding democracy in a way as the solution, and yet hurling a shoe at and therefore insulting the man who has been responsible for at least trying to bring it to their nation.
Yes, you know, when the incident took place, a few things happened. When you look at this video, if you just watch the video and listen to the natural sound on it, you're going to hear many security officers yell in Arabic, "Shut off the camera, shut off the camera." People are seeing this as a sign of anything but democracy. As a matter of fact, people who were in the room said that it was the Americans, it was the U.S. security forces saying, no, 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 don't shut off the cameras. We're not trying to block this video from making it out to the public. So basically, you have groups within Iraq, especially the television station that employs this journalist, Al-Baghdadiya. They're saying that if this is a real democracy, if this is a true democracy, then this man should be released because he did not do anything but basically disrupt the press conference and act in a way that represents him, basically, which, as we said before, many people are applauding at this point. So definitely this is going to be a test of Iraqi democracy. It's going to be also a test of how this Iraqi government of Prime Minister Maliki handles a situation like this. Like I said, this is the first time something like this happens. So it's a precedent. How are they going to deal with it? Is this man going to be jailed? Is this man going to be charged with any wrongdoing besides interrupting, basically rudely interrupting, I have to say, this press conference? Or is there going to be more to that? So definitely you're right about how the reaction to the incident and what's going to happen to this man is definitely a big question mark. And people are concerned. They're showing concern. That means definitely the democracy is here at a very important point, and it's a big test for it in Iraq.
Right, and you were just saying there, Octavia, about sort of rudely interrupting the press conference. We know that this shoe throwing is a sign of contempt. The person is lower than the shoe that is always on the ground. And of course, who could forget seeing those shoes hurled at Saddam Hussein's statue after it was toppled, after the US led invasion. So since it was the U.S. that ousted Saddam Hussein, it seems like there are conflicted feelings about Americans, since the shoes were used both on Saddam Hussein and on President Bush.
Yes, and actually, if you remember in 2003 when when Baghdad fell and the statues fell, and people just, an outpour of emotion, took their shoes and started beating on those statues, it was shocking. We reported back then that the Arab world was shocked at these images. People couldn't believe how Iraqis were expressing their feelings toward a dictator, someone who basically led them under a dictatorship, was responsible for the deaths of many, the starvation of millions of his own countrymen. So people try to explain that as they're showing their frustration and their reaction to the fall of Saddam Hussein, that they were jubilant about it. Here it's a bit different. The man screamed, this is a farewell in the name of the Iraqis. You dog. When you call someone a dog in the Middle East, that is also an insult. So it wasn't just throwing the shoe, it was also the language, the rhetoric that accompanied it. Basically, in the Saddam Hussein statue situation, it was jubilation, but also it was an insult of Saddam Hussein, except they couldn't do that when the man was in power. They did it when he fell down and when his statues fell down. In this case, President Bush on his farewell trip, this man decided, he's a lone man who acted on impulse. But the interesting thing is the reaction that he got. And again, very important to stress that while many people stepped in support of this man, hailing him as a hero, you still have a good chunk of the population inside Iraq and the Arab world saying this is unacceptable, this is rude, this is impolite, this is totally a no-no. This shouldn't happen, and it reflects badly on the culture, on the country, and also on the profession of journalism.
Right, yeah, I guess it reflects that tension. Nobody necessarily likes an occupying force, but on the other hand, there's that fear of when that force may depart and the chaos that may ensue. Octavia, this is a fascinating discussion. Thank you very much for having it with us.
Thanks for having me.